This is the best steel string acoustic guitar I've ever played. This is my main acoustic guitar and it's the one I use in all my videos, and probably the thing I get the most in the comments is people asking what kind of guitar this is. So in this video I'm going to tell you everything about this guitar, how I came to be in possession of it, and why you might be able to get one from the same luthier, but probably not anytime soon. So the short answer is that this is a Biosca guitar made by a guy named Dan Biosca. And it doesn't really have a model name. It is loosely based on the Gibson L0 model, basically a little bit bigger than a parlor guitar. But of course, there are a lot more details than that, so let me give you the full story. So a few years ago, I was playing a lot of solo guitar gigs, and my main instrument at the time was this old Ovation guitar that my dad had given me years ago when I was a teenager. And it was an okay guitar, but it wasn't the standard that I really needed for the amount of gigging I was doing. So I decided I needed to get a new guitar. So over the course of a few months, I went to every guitar store in Portland that I knew of. I even went up to Seattle and searched their guitar stores up there. Played a few guitars that were really great, but nothing that really spoke to me that I just absolutely fell in love with, until I found this guy at a gig, actually, that I was playing. I was playing bass in a classic country band back then, and we played at this guitar store in Southeast Portland that I had never heard of called Strum. And we played our set. After our set, I decided to check out the inventory. So this was one of the guitars that I pulled down off the wall. And as soon as I started playing it, it was like a little light bulb went off in my head. I just fell in love with it almost immediately. The feel of it, the sound of it, it felt like it belonged in my hands. And so over the course of the next few weeks, I found myself continually going back to Strum and playing just this guitar. And each time I went, I would play it for a little bit longer and I would like it a little bit more, until eventually, probably my fourth or fifth visit there, I was like, okay, this is the one. So I bought this guitar in late 2019. And once I made that purchase, I loved the guitar right off the bat, but there were two things I ended up needing to figure out before I was 100% happy with it. The first thing was what type of strings I was going to use, and the second thing was amplification. So as far as the strings go, what I found after I had the guitar for a couple weeks was that it sounded great and it felt great, but it had this high end that was so responsive. I had a really hard time reining it in. There was a ton of string noise, a lot of squeaking as I was moving my fingers. It highlighted the deficiencies in my left-hand technique like no other guitar had, which, you know, thanks, I guess. But I needed to find some strings that would mellow it out a little bit on the high end. So I searched and searched and finally ended up finding these guys, the Thomastik Infeld Plectrum strings, AC111. It's a silk and steel type of string. And the silk and steel strings tend to be a little bit mellower in the high end, and those things just melded with this guitar in a way that it was like the sweet spot. So once I found those strings, this guitar became everything I wanted it to be as an acoustic instrument. And then there was the amplification issue. So this guitar, when I bought it, didn't have a pickup in it, so I had to get that installed. I could have used a mic, but I really don't like using mics during performances. I'm okay doing it in the studio because it's a more controlled environment. I don't mind holding totally still while I'm playing like one song at a time. But when I'm performing, I really like to be able to move around if I feel like it. And with a mic, if you move, it totally changes the tone and the volume. It's just so much easier to have a pickup. I ended up getting a K&K pickup installed and honestly really hated the sound at first. It was like somehow there was too much of every frequency. I don't know how that's possible. So that took a long time to figure out. What I eventually ended up doing was getting a Tone Dexter pedal. If you're not familiar with Tone Dexter pedals, and you are a gigging acoustic guitarist who ever struggles with your amplified tone, highly recommend checking them out. I'll link to that company in the description. That pedal basically single-handedly ended up solving my tone issues, and now when I play live, I can get pretty much the same tone amplified that I get acoustic out of the guitar. Okay, so I mentioned the make and the model earlier, but let's get into the specs in a little bit more detail. So the top is made of Sitka spruce. The sides and back are Oregon myrtle wood, which I think is super cool, not just because it's beautiful and because it sounds great, but I just think it's really cool to have a guitar that's made from local wood. Just makes it feel that much more special. The fretboard is rosewood, so rosewood fretboard, and then mahogany neck. And it has a 24 3/16 inch scale length. So a full like inch and a quarter-ish shorter than your typical like Taylor or Martin guitars, because like I said, the size of this guitar is closer to a parlor than a full size. So what I love about this guitar is honestly pretty much everything. For me, it really comes down to feel when I'm evaluating an instrument. And I don't just mean like in a tactile physical sense. I mean, what does it feel like to play the guitar? What does a guitar make me feel when I'm playing it? Does it make me excited? Does it make me want to keep playing it? Is it a joyous experience? Or is it just kind of meh? And for me, this guitar feels amazing. Like I said earlier, it feels like it was meant to be in my hands. Now, of course, if we want to be more analytical about it, we can break down that general term feel into the individual qualities of the guitar and talk about those a little bit. So there's the tactile, actual physical sense of what does it feel like to play the guitar. And for me, again, 10 out of 10. I just love the way this guitar physically feels in my hands. I love the responsiveness of it. I love the string spacing. I love the action. I love the shorter scale length, just a smaller size of the guitar overall. It just fits me really well. Another aspect of a guitar is just the aesthetics. What does it look like? And honestly, for me, that's not super high up on my priority list, but it is nice to have an instrument that looks nice. And I think this guitar looks nice. So I'm totally happy with the aesthetics of this guitar as well. And then there's one aspect that most people would probably consider most important in a guitar, and that is the sound, right? And for me, that's the one spot with this guitar where I'm more like a 9 out of 10 rather than a 10 out of 10. And don't get me wrong, 9 out of 10 is a very high score. I still love the way this guitar sounds, but it takes some effort to get there. So I talked earlier about the whole amplification journey. I don't really blame the guitar too much for that. This guitar, like I said, wasn't built with a pickup in it, and so it wasn't really designed to be amplified. So I can't really dock it too many points for that. But even acoustically, it does have a kind of certain type of honkiness or boxiness to the sound sometimes. It really comes out in certain types of rooms, and it's more noticeable when I'm recording than it is when I'm playing it. When I'm playing it with my ears in this position to the guitar, sounds amazing. But when I listen back to recordings, it's really strong in like the 70 to 130, 140 hertz range. I really have to cut that pretty severely. So I love the way this guitar sounds, but it does take some effort for me to get it to sound the way I want it to. So ultimately the question is, would I recommend this guitar to other people? And the answer is 100% yes. Absolutely I would. I love this guitar. My one tiny little gripe is that boxiness that comes out every once in a while, but that's pretty easily dealt with if you understand how to do some basic EQing. Overall, this guitar is absolutely amazing, and I would fully recommend it to anybody who is looking for a new acoustic guitar. The problem though with recommending this guitar is that, as I hinted at in the intro, you probably aren't going to be able to get it or even one like it anytime soon. And that is because the guy who made this guitar, his name is Dan Biasca, he isn't a professional luthier in the sense of he has some other day job. I actually don't know what his day job is, but he only makes like maybe 1 to 3 guitars a year. And he says lately he's been really swamped with his day job, so he's been on the lower side of that. The good news is he is going to retire within the next year or so. And so his plan is, and hopefully this comes to fruition, to ramp up production and spend more time working on guitars. I really hope that's true because I think the world needs more of these guitars in it. So if you're interested in getting a guitar made, I will leave his contact info down below. Unfortunately, He doesn't have a website or anything like that because it is such a small operation. He has a Facebook page, so it's really just a matter of hitting him up, seeing what he has available, and going from there. All right guys, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope I answered all your questions about this guitar, but if I didn't, feel free to leave them in the comments. I'm happy to continue the discussion down there. And until then, I'll see you in the next video. Say hi to everybody. Ooh, you got bad breath, dude.